2021. This is episode 193. Should I buy the nicest home in the area for a midterm rental? This question comes from the Facebook group, 39.6 community. I'm trying to catch up over here. We're back to regular life. All the kids are back here. They're back in school as of today. Today's first day of school, and back to the grind. Had a really busy last month. Actually had the biggest grossing month of work, so that was good, but need to catch up on some episodes here. So we had PIMD Con 2021 a couple weeks ago. Had a bunch of people join our group since then. Thank you for joining. And this question's from a new member. Said, I very much enjoyed your participation at PIMD Con this year, and your representation of nice midterm rentals piqued my interest. When you spoke of your midterm rentals, often rented by people doing their home remodels, were you buying in high or mid or low cost of living areas? You also mentioned that your rental was the nicest home in the area. What search criteria did you use to find a home like this? Okay, well, thank you for joining PIMD Con. That was a lot of fun, and talk about short-term rentals. And there's another conference on short-term rentals coming soon, hosted by Chia Gozie Fawole. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. I need to put a link to that on my page. Kate and I are talking there, as well as a bunch of other people. So that should be really good as well. So first of all, we've been doing midterm rentals on our property for the past couple of years, minus COVID. So during COVID, as of February last year, we stayed in our house all the way up until June of this year, at which point we had somebody move into our house again, and we moved into an apartment. I think it was June. Maybe it's July. I don't really remember exactly. But so we've been renting it out for over a month at a time. We rented out for 45 days. That was for $1,000 a day. 42 days, $4,000 a day. That was, I think, July to mid-August. Then we've had a tenant in there, had about a week gap, and we've been renting it at $18,000 a month, which is actually one of our lower prices because we had a vacancy. So we lowered it and got that for another 2-month rental, but then they extended it, and that's going to be over 3 months, I think 3.5 months. And then over this weekend, we had somebody ask for it for 3 to 6 months at $14,000 a month, which is still a lot of cash flow. But we're sitting on that for right now. That would be for after this tenant moves out, assuming they move out when they plan to. So the people who had requested over the weekend are planning to do a home remodel, and they want it for at least 3, possibly up to 6 months. 3 months actually is pretty interesting because it would take us from mid-November through mid-February, and the winter time is, in general, slower months for shorter-term rental properties. So that is a little bit appealing. The summer can do super well. So if we could actually get $14,000 a month for 3 months, that wouldn't be bad because that would ride us through the season. Although if we wanted to rent it short for like a week for Thanksgiving or a week for Christmas, we could actually do very, very well on those weeks individually. But our property is in a high cost of living area. We bought this property as a long-term rental. This was in an area. This is in an area with a very good public school district. A lot of people move into the city, University Park, Highland Park School District, just to get into the school district. So there's a lot of business owners who make a ton of income, but they don't show anything on their W-2, right? Or on their taxes, and take all these losses. And so there's actually a very high rental market for properties in this area. A typical single family house in this area goes for $1.5 million. That's like a single family house by itself. Now, our property is half of a duplex, so it's cheaper than that. But half of a duplex still runs about $1 million plus. And so there's a very strong rental market for that. Because it's a lot cheaper than the average house, these make for good rental properties. It rents for around $7,000 a month or so. It's rented up to $7,200. It's rented down into the 6,000s, but definitely at least mid 6,000s per month, which is pretty reasonable. Now, and there's no problem finding tenants, long-term tenants at that price point. Short-term tenants, you will easily be more than twice as much. You should be looking at 2.5, 3 times as much on a short-term rental as you are on a long-term rental. And as a mid-term rental, for example, we're renting at $18,000 right now. That's about 2.5 times what the standard monthly rent is on a long-term rental. So those are really good numbers. When in the summertime, when you rented it for $1,000 a day, you got $40,000 in 6 weeks. That's multiple fold. That's $30,000 a month. That's like 4x, 4.5x long-term rental price. So incredible multiplier there. Now, the reason why this works is because it is one of the cheapest properties in the area. Okay. The people who are using insurance claims to rent out our house are people who have nicer houses, and the insurance company is willing to pay $15,000, $20,000 a month because they happen to be living in a $2 million or $3 million house, and there are no comparable properties. We are like the only property in the area that is available for a 3-month period of time in the same school district, like literally the only property with comparable number of bedrooms, like 4 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, may actually be like the only property literally available for a 3-month running period in the school district. Because a lot of people, first of all, there's not a lot of short-term rentals. But even if there are, people often book them out in advance. They'll book out a weekend here, a weekend there, and kind of fill up their calendar. So when somebody needs 2 months, 3 months in a row, it's really hard to find that stretch of period of time. So we don't let anybody book out our property in advance for like small blocks. If they're going to run it in advance, it's going to be for a big period of time. Okay, so if we had bought the nicest home in the area, first of all, that's very hard to conceptualize because University Park, nicest house in the area. I mean, you're looking at, I don't know, $10 million. Highland Park School District, if look at the nicest property in Highland Park, you're looking at like $100 million. This is all in like about a 2 square mile area. So you don't buy $100 million property to rent it out. That's not gonna work. But you buy the cheapest property in the nicest area, which does happen to be expensive, but it is still the cheapest in the area. Then you have a lot of exit strategies. One, you could do a long-term rental. You could do a mid-term rental. And you could just live in it. And even if you just live in it, the likelihood your property is going to lose value, even in relatively poor economic conditions, is a lot less. If you have the cheapest property, you're going to go down the least, right? Because ultimately, there's always people who want to get into the area, and people often just want to get into the area, so they'll get into the cheapest way to get into the area. For example, if you look at tickets to a concert, when they become available, the seats that people want are the best seats in the cheapest section, right? Yeah, the nicest seats at the very front, people want those too, but that's like a handful. The ones that are in super high demand by the market are like the front row of the cheapest section. Everybody just wants to get in, and they want to have the best seats for the month they pay, right? The best, cheapest. And that's what we have. And so we're very protected. Now, if we are looking at appreciation, well, yeah, if we bought a more expensive property and it had the appreciation like other properties did in the area in the past year, then yeah, we would have had more growth. We would have also required more cash to go in. There would have been potentially more upside. I did an episode this past year about the house that we had under contract for like $1.2 million 5 years ago, and somebody sold it for $1.9 million in a day. It went off the market earlier this year during the absolute craziness. Yeah, $700,000 of gain. They probably put in $100K into it, so maybe $600,000 of gain owning the property for 5 years. That's pretty darn good, especially given that it was like a 50% increase in value. So they did very, very, very well with their money. But back to the original question, should I buy the nicest home? I would definitely not buy the nicest home in any area. Basically, regardless of the price, because you are the least protected. And one of my primary things I think about is, how do I protect my investment? And as Warren Buffett says, never lose money. So what is your downside? It's not necessarily buying an expensive property. Expensive properties don't necessarily have as big a downside as maybe a cheaper property that is overpriced for the area, right? You buy a $300,000 house where the median house is $150,000, you're twice the median. You're a lot more likely to go down in value than the property that is 1/2 the price of the median property in the same area, or maybe let's say 1 standard deviation below the mean. Okay, so cheaper homes tend to be more protected. Now, why is our property cheaper? Well, one is a duplex, right, or half of a duplex, so you don't get a full yard. But it's still a big house. It's 4 bedrooms, 4.5 baths. So it provides a lot of the amenities that people need in housing, but it might not be their quote unquote forever house, but it does serve the need of shelter, getting them in the school district. And for example, our tenants, we often have families who have like kids in the high school. Okay. They don't need a big yard, and it's right next door to the high school. So it works out well. It has a little yard because a lot of people have dogs. So you want to be able to cater to a family, and there you go. We have a yard, and we have the public schools. Let's see. You actually mentioned, okay, what search criteria did you use to find a home? We didn't buy the house looking at it to be a short-term or mid-term rental. We bought the property as a long-term rental when we were planning to ultimately house hack properties. We had already bought the other half of the duplex the year prior. After 1 year was done, we went and bought the second half of the duplex, and that was property 2 after our second year, and we were going to do that for multiple years. And then we kind of transitioned into doing short-term rentals on this property, and then also just investing in syndications to scale. So there you go. That's our story. It's a lot of properties out there. Website AirDNA is a great place to look at for analysis on short-term rentals. For mid-term rentals, I really don't know what's out there. It's kind of a very niche thing. I honestly don't know. David DeGreenis, who was on the same panel as I was, we're both here in Dallas, actually, and we both have done incredibly well this summer renting out properties at incredibly high prices because of the winter storm. I mean, people are still remodeling from the winter storm. It's crazy. And with the housing market the way it is, people buying, people selling, there's a lot of remodeling going on. I mean, we're remodeling a house, right? It's like you talk to anybody, they're in the process of buying or selling and or remodeling. That's it. I mean, everybody. So it's anytime you get a deal with a tenant for like 2 months for renovation, in more than half of those instances, it's turned into 3 months plus because these things don't get done on time. I mean, we started working on our reno beginning of June, and it is approaching, so June, July, August. Yeah, we've done 4 months on it. We're nowhere close to being done, but progress is being made, and the progress that's being made is good progress, and we're very happy with it. We prepared for it to take longer than expected. We have a cheap, nice apartment, and when it's done, it'll be done. And, you know, if it gets done in December, then we may just short-term rental it and take the depreciation. So in the chat box, best, cheapest, yes, from our friend Roseanne. Okay, there we go. Until next time for episode 194, I'm going to try to grind out some more of these Q&As because these are fun. Again, this is not legal, not financial, not accounting, or any other advice. This is simply for my entertainment and hopefully yours. So great to see all the people joining the call. Also, shout out, we have our multifamily masterclass starting next week already? Yeah, starting next week. So if you're interested in learning more about multifamily syndications, investing, and doing your own due diligence, come join the party, multifamilymasterclass.com. You can see the link in our Facebook group, the 39.6 community. Please like, please share with a friend. Until episode 194, hopefully in the next couple of days or so. Have a good one.